What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's going on with Tesla SPY and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic data going out for tomorrow, what's happening with some big headlines for Tesla as we have important data coming out in just a couple of days, and what's happening with all these different share prices as we're seeing some new developments. But before I break into this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks. And this offer ends very, very soon in just about 24 hours. So check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's break down what's happening to Tesla. So looking at Tesla, as you guys know, we have some crazy deliveries numbers coming out for Tuesday. So I'm going to break down the time in which they're coming out, what's happening with some data involving this, and how the chart's looking in my honest opinion. As you can see, Tesla has this little downtrend that's been established for the last couple of days. It also broke this structure right over here. So it's showing a little bit of weakness. And we have this gap down here. So I do see a little bit more potential for it to drop. But don't forget that this is not going to matter as much because the much bigger move is going to be coming after deliveries come out. So once again, I'll talk about all this data before I break down all these charts, before I talk about SPY and the others. Let's talk about the data for the market for tomorrow first. So tomorrow is Monday, April 1st, 2024. The time I'm recording this video is Sunday. It's Easter Sunday here in the USA. So have a very, very happy Easter, guys, by the way. But anyways, for tomorrow, for Monday, April 1st at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to be 15 minutes after the market opens. We have the S&P Global Manufacturing PMI coming out. This is very important for not only that sector, but also for the stock market because it's going to help us understand the Fed's policies and how things are looking in this sector. And then after that, 30 minutes after the market opens at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have even more data coming out. I'd say this could lead to even more volatility. More ISM manufacturing numbers are coming out, not to mention the new orders and then the prices. So new orders and prices are also very important because they're very forward looking. They're going to give us more ideas about how inflation could look projecting moving forward, how the economy is looking for any increases or strength within the new orders reports, and also how prices are looking for manufacturing. That's going to be very important as well. So expect some high volatility in the markets for the first 15 to 30 minutes. Then after that, things could cool off a bit as we approach 11:30 a.m. when the bill auctions come out. So most of the data is kind of minor after like 10 o'clock a.m. But before that, I would say watch the data more carefully around 10 a.m. So watch for volatility once again, the first 15 and 30 minutes of the day for tomorrow. And on top of all of this, we have some earnings coming in. It's all very, very minor. I'm going to be paying some attention to like BlackBerry and like Levi's and a few others like that. But this is all very minor. If you want to take a screenshot to place one of these, you could. But that's it for now. Earnings are going to become a lot more important in the next couple of weeks, however, as we have Tesla's earnings in about 2 to 3 weeks from now. So we'll be watching to see that as well. We also had Jerome Powell giving a speech on Friday, by the way. He wasn't really insane in terms of his words. He was kind of, I would say, in the middle, a little bit more ambiguous again, and somewhat dovish to some extent. So I'm going to break down why. So the reason for that is because he said that reducing rates too soon would be very, very disruptive, and waiting too long can mean unneeded damage to the economy and the labor markets. So he's kind of in the middle in that sense. But then he said this that the economy is strong, no hurry to cut rates. And that's been making some headlines. So I think that that was one of the like key highlights of his speech. I would say he was a little bit in the middle and a bit more dovish for the most part, and that could cause a little pop in the markets. I don't think it's going to be that crazy though, because this was many days ago, and the market was closed at the time he was speaking, so we could see a small reaction. But then I think that the data coming out on Monday may cause even more of a move. For other pieces of data, as a reminder, the fear and greed index is currently at greed. We're getting very close to the extreme level, but we're not quite there yet. Other indicators are at extreme greed for market momentum and other things like that. The put and call options positioning is actually on a bit of a dip right here, only at this like 0.75 area. It's been dipping a little bit because of the fact that we're seeing a little shift in the markets. I'm noticing that some puts have been closed to some extent, and we're seeing a lot more call buying, if anything. That's been increasing for the last couple of trading days, especially on Thursday, especially on SPY. We saw a lot of like calls being bought, some puts being closed. They've been hedging by closing puts by going long, which is what helped the market push to a new all-time high. But for now, that's not what we're going to likely continue to see. We could see more puts being bought if there's a big disruptive event in the markets. The part of why I say that's a possibility is because of the market volatility, the VIX at these lows. So, what this tells me is that the market is still on an uptrend. It's still bullish right now. But because of how low the VIX is, historically, it does tend to get some nice bounces around this area within like a month from now. So within a month from now, there might be a little drop coming to the markets. It could be like a small 2 to 3% drop. Maybe it could be like a 5% drop. Within a month from now, it might be coming because of where the VIX is and because of how the puts and call positioning could start going up. But I'm talking about like a month out, what the VIX is suggesting. I'm not saying that's what it's causing right now. Right now, these indicators are still bullish for the stock market. The market is still bullish overall. There's no sign of that drop just yet, but just keep this in the back of your mind about where the VIX is. Anyways, that's it for the analysis for the overall markets. Let's talk about Tesla. What's going on with Tesla? Chinese EV sales are going to be very important for the market as a whole, right? We have a lot of small ones like NIO, Li Auto announcing their deliveries on Monday, April 1st. But don't forget that BYD is going to announce them on either Monday or Tuesday, and Tesla's going to be making their big announcements on April 2nd. Okay, so Teslas are very important because we're going to be looking for some new expectations. Many analysts are saying around 457,000. Others are saying 480,000. Most are actually saying maybe under that, like around 420,000. It's really just all over the place, guys. I'd rather just wait for a little bit at this point and see what others have to say. I like to follow Troy Teslike, who tends to be quite accurate with their projections. But like I said before, the best thing to do is just wait for the data and see how it goes. The main expectation is that Tesla's deliveries are not going to be the strongest. They're going to be coming out on Tuesday, April 2nd between 8:30 a.m. and 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let me just note that sometimes Tesla's a little bit late to these. They could be like 30 minutes late. So we'll see. But usually they do tend to be on time, and it should be on April 2nd. It's very consistent on that day. So Tuesday should be when they end up announcing it. I just don't know the exact timing, maybe between 8:30 and 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time before market open. So we'll see. I'm going to be looking at Troy Teslak. I do recommend kind of following his data because he tends to be one of the most accurate people at kind of like forecasting Tesla's deliveries and production. So I would say recommend just like listening to what he has to say. He has some very, very valid points. So we'll see what goes on with that. As far as Tesla goes, there's been a lot of talk about Tesla getting lots of negative light from these Wall Street analysts, from Wells Fargo to Wedbush and Bernstein. They're all kind of like downgrading Tesla slowly. They're doing this because of what's happening with EV demand, and also they could have other intentions, such as bringing the share price down to buy, shares for cheap. You could argue that, but simultaneously, the main reason as to why this is making these headlines and it's so serious is because of what's happening within the markets, as the markets being very, very disrupted by the current monetary policy by our Fed, not to mention other very important reserves across the globe. So I would say that there's been a lot of negative news for Tesla. More downgrades have been coming, and at this point, it's been kind of negative for Tesla. Could even lead to some more negativity going into tomorrow. But the main move that's going to come is going to come after deliveries. I think that's more important for now, and I think that's going to make all the headlines. That's what people are going to be watching for. Volume is at about 77 million, a little bit below average, and then short volume is actually going up just a little bit. So we're seeing a little bit more shorting on Tesla. And then on top of that, Deutsche Bank did give Tesla a buy rating. Wedbush is also saying they're going to outperform the market, despite getting some price downgrades for the long term. But other analysts, some banks are also kind of bullish on Tesla. The majority of them, from what I've seen, have been a bit more bearish. Price price ratio is down because Tesla's not the strongest overall. Mondays tend to be green about 53% of the time, but we might not get a good green day tomorrow because of the weak expectations. Look for volatility at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and also around 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then just know that March tends to be not the strongest of months for Tesla. We did finish March on not the best of ends. And then April tends to be a better month for Tesla historically, but in this case, that's going to depend a lot on their earnings as well in a couple of weeks and their deliveries. So we'll see how it goes. With that being said, guys, let's now talk about the charts out there. How are the charts looking for Tesla and the others? So right now, if I could summarize this chart looks a little bearish on Tesla because of the fact that we're on a bit of a decline. And like I said earlier, we have this like gap below us. So Tesla's looking a bit more bearish for now, and there is a risk of this actually dropping a bit more. I'm going to be looking at resistance around 177.6, very close to our 50 EMA. For support, you're going to be watching not just 175, but also 173.75, which is where this gap is, not to mention 172. My gut tells me that there's a very, very interesting pattern on the chart. Notice how it likes to pop and drop. It did that last Monday. It also did this on Tuesday. It popped and dropped. On Wednesday, it pops, dropped, popped, and dropped. And then on Thursday, it popped a little bit, then started to drop. So as you can see, it loves to pop and drop in the mornings. That's what it loves to do. It's been doing that for the last 4 days. And for the last 3.5 days, it's been on a bit of a decline as well. So I would say that the decline is going to likely continue, but we might pop and drop as well in the daytime before we come down to fill this gap down here. So I think Tesla could see some stops being triggered, retest like this 177 area to 176. It also depends on the news, of course, but I do favor a little pop first, then a move all the way down to fill this gap, and then some sideways price action to 172 area, as the chart's going to be very indecisive after its earnings, not the earnings, the delivery numbers end up coming out. So I think a pop and drop in the sideways price action is very probable on Tesla for tomorrow. So watch for that very carefully. Could grab liquidity at 177, then come back down, start dropping to fill its gap and get closer to 172, then make its way back up and trade sideways. And then look for a big move after deliveries end up coming out. For SPY, this has a nice accumulation structure just like this. I'm going to be looking for a move to the upside depending on what the reaction is thanks to Powell and etc. And then watch and see if we establish a lower high or not. We have some tight resistance at 524, and our support is currently around 522.8 and 522 flat. I think that the 50 EMA is going to kind of like uptrend a little bit and get close to 522. If we lose this, a bigger drop is coming to 520. So I think we're going to pop a bit depending on Powell, and then we might be making our way back down, just like what I have forecasted right here towards this trend line. I find that to be very, very probable. I think we're going to be retesting this trend line. We might pop first and come back down. If we end up establishing a lower high, this could be the start of either like a downtrend or we could be forming either a cup and handle. So there are two possibilities. I'll be talking more about the cup and handle and that maybe a little bit later. See if we can try to break the high or not. If we do even do so, we could come back down since resistance is very tight up there. But I do favor a move like this, one of these two where it like pops a bit and comes down to test the trend line, or just pops a little bit and then comes back down. It's going to be one of those two. For, let me see, the QQQ, okay? The QQQ is on a bit of a downtrend. We actually had this high up here around this 450 area, came down. There's a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. It's been on a bit of a downtrend. So you guys can see this channel is a bit more bearish. We have this resistance up here to be watching for around 445 and be very close to that area. And our support is going to be at this trend line right here at 443.5, depending on the timing. If we lose this, we're going to be coming all the way down to 442 all over again. And I do see that to be very, very likely because the chart's showing some weakness. It might trigger stops again, retest our 50 EMA or so, depending on what Nvda and others do before it continues to sink lower all the way down to 442. So watch for that very, very carefully. I do see that to be very, very probable. For Nvidia is looking a little bit indecisive to me because I think it's best to just wait and give this time. And the reason I say that is because for a little bit over 2 days, it's been stuck within this range, right? It's been stuck within this range. Resistance is at 908, supports at 892. It's been going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So watch and see which way it breaks. If we break past 908, there could be a push to 920. If we lose 892, we're going to be coming all the way down to 885 and 877. I think that it's indecisive, so I'm going to give it a little bit of time. But I do want to warn you that there is a risk of it kind of like retesting 908 and coming back down to 892 again. I see a move like that coming maybe as soon as tomorrow. But just to be safe, I just want to make it clear that I'm going to be a little bit more patient with this one compared to the others. Way more patient and way more cautious since it's very, very range bound. Apple looks kind of bearish. This is kind of resembling, you could argue this kind of looks like a inverse cup and handle. And simultaneously, we have a bearish structure where we like to pop, get rejected, pop, get rejected, pop, get rejected. So it looks a little bit more bearish. Watch resistance at 171.8, 172.5. And if we break above the 200 EMA at 172.8, that would turn us like a little bit more bullish. If we hold above this resistance, if we close above that, that would be more bullish. If we're bearish, we want to see this thing basically lose 170.5 and then 170 and start sinking all the way down lower. What do I think it's going to do? I think it's going to rebound and retest our 50 EMA or so, then start sinking back down lower, depending on the news. And then I think that we're going to be making our way down to 170 again. I think the chart's showing a little bit of weakness. And that is it for the main five I typically go over. So just know that Tesla is showing some weakness because the expectations for deliveries are not the strongest. We're not really expecting strong numbers from Wall Street. We're getting all these downgrades and stuff. So that's the reason why Tesla may not be the strongest tomorrow when we start trading. So just be careful. Make sure you're very open minded for that. Now, on top of that, let me talk about some other tickers. I'm going to be kind of quick with this part. Supermicro is kind of indecisive. Watch 1020 as resistance. If we break through this, we could be looking for about 1050. Then these imbalances to be filling up above. For support, if we lose key support at 1000, if we lose that, look for a move to 980, then eventually 950. I think it's going to be kind of sideways for now, but I do want to note that there's a risk of it declining because, excuse me, because we've been making lower highs and lower lows. So I think that we're kind of indecisive, and I think that there's going to be a risk of us dropping a bit lower. So I would say we look for some sideways price action to move back down to 980. So watch that very carefully. For this is Rivian. Rivian's looking a little bit weak as well because we have this big rejection right over here, and I'm going to actually pull up the 4-hour time frame to show you this. I'm seeing some weakness on the charts right here. I think that there's a risk of this declining just a little bit more, and I think that it's going to be very important to look at this carefully. So I would say that, in my opinion, Rivian is looking like it's going to slow down a little bit, could pop a little bit, then start to slow, and I think that's Tesla's going to have a very very big effect on this. So whatever happens to Tesla will also ultimately dictate how this ends up moving. So I think it's very important to just watch for that carefully and then see how things go from there. But I think that we're going to be looking for a retest of 11.2. Then our move back down will likely come after Tesla. So just be careful. For SoFi, it's very boring. It's been stuck between 7.2 and 7.5, going back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. So as of right now, it's kind of range bound. It's just completely range bound. So it might just continue to be stuck. Not really much is going on with it. So we have to give it some more time. For AMD, I'm seeing some potential for this thing to attempt to bounce, but we first have to try to break above 183.78, maybe a little bit lower than that, like 183.5 by the time the 50 EMA gets here. We have support at 177. The buyers are trying to defend 177, but the issue is it hasn't been able to break out yet. I'm seeing some potential buying that's going on in this. I noticed that in order flow and other things like that. So there is potential for this to bounce, but we have to break 183.78 or so by the next couple of days for us to get that bounce. Otherwise, it's still kind of stuck in this range. It's not really doing a whole lot. So buyers are defending it. They're trying to hold this support, which is where our 177 area zone is. But the issue is we haven't been able to break out yet. So we need that breakout for this thing to start pushing for like 190. If we break 184, excuse me, then we can see 190, but we're not really ready yet. So it needs a little bit more time. For ARM right now is looking a little bit more weak. We're going to be looking at the support right here at 123.5. If we lose this, we're going to be sinking all the way down to about 122 to 120. And if we try to break, we'll look for a push all the way back up to about 129. As of right now, we're kind of stuck at this support, so we'll have to see how this holds up. But I just want to note that ARM is just trying to base right here, showing a little bit of weakness, so there's a risk of it dropping a bit more. Let me also note that for others out there like Coinbase is on a attempts to try to bounce here, but the issue is we could be forming a head and shoulders. So I think it's going to be testing this resistance around 272 or very close to it, and we'll have to see if we get a big rejection or not. If we reject and we lose our 50 EMA, this thing could see a big drop. If we hold the 50 EMA, we're going to be okay. That's going to be a key support in my opinion. There's a possible head and shoulders on Coinbase, so be careful, guys. I'll be watching this very, very carefully. Amazon has an issue. Every time it hits 181, this thing is like kind of struggling to get a breakout. So if we fail to break 181, look for a move back down to 178. And if we lose that, a bigger drop is coming. Otherwise, it's just range bound for now. It's been stuck between 178 and 181 for like about a week. But we have some tight resistance. We'll have to see how Amazon reacts. There is a risk of this dropping, so just be kind of careful. Meta is on a bit of a downtrend. It's been sinking, but we do have a falling wedge like structure. The chart is bearish. We could be approaching 480 very, very soon, or even below that. We could go all the way down to like 475. But the thing is, even though this thing's on a bit of a downtrend, there is potential for this to get a breakout if we break past this structure. If there's a change in market structure, we break past the white line, we could be retesting these EMAs up here to 500 if we get that bounce. But we're not there yet. As of right now, we look bearish, so it does favor it continuing to sink for now. But in the future, it could get that break. We haven't done it yet, so it looks bearish, but there is potential for it. For Microsoft, we're looking a bit more bearish. We're barely around 420. If we lose 420, look for a move back down to 415. If we hold it, we could be retesting 424. But my guts tells me that this is looking a little bearish and might actually continue to sink down towards 415. So just be very careful with this chart. I want to give you guys a warning about that. For the VIX, like I said before, we're in territory where the VIX likes to bounce within a month, right? That's what happens historically once we hit this low level. So within a month, there could be a big break coming to the VIX because of the market dropping, but we're not there yet. We're still indecisive. We've been indecisive for the last couple of days. So this needs a bit more time. So right now, the market is still favoring bulls. The market is still on an uptrend. The market is still holding up well. But in the future, the VIX does suggest that there could be a move to the downside coming to the markets in like a month or so from now. So you want to be very careful, give the VIX the time it needs, and just be very, very prepared for that warning. The dollar index is also on a bit of an uptrend. If this keeps pushing higher, if this keeps trying to break 104.5 or even above that, that could be a little bit more bearish for the markets. So give this the time it needs. With that being said, guys, that is it for the video. As far as Tesla goes, Tesla's looking kind of weak because expectations are not that high for their deliveries. So we'll see how things go. It could pop and drop again, but the real move will come after deliveries come out. So we'll see how that goes for Tesla. With that being said, guys, enjoy the rest of Easter. Enjoy the holiday. Enjoy the weekend. Do what you have to do. I really appreciate every single one of you. Take care, guys, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow morning for my next update video. Thank you for listening. Have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Regardless of what happens to Tesla, just remember the long term is still very bright, regardless of what deliveries look like. I'm still a big bull for the long term. For the short term, yes, Tesla looks a little bit more bearish, so I'm going to hold those views based off what the chart tells me. I try not to be too biased. I try not to favor one side over another. I just try to tell you guys what I think is the most logical assessment for short term and long term analysis. And I want to try to put a lot of biases aside when it comes to doing so. All right. So have a great day, guys. Take care. I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow, and peace out.